Cyberpunk 2077. This game is near and dear to my heart. I have racked up a grand total of 1100 hours roaming the streets of Night City, exploring the barren Badlands and striding through sunny Pacifica, doing my absolute best to avoid Voodoo Boy bullets. Now, Cyberpunk is coming up on its 3-year anniversary since its supposedly controversial release back in December of 2020. And in honor of the upcoming expansion Phantom Liberty and all of the hype drummed up by Andronas, I thought I would make a video purely to share my thoughts on why I love this game wholeheartedly to its very core. This game is aged like a fine bottle of champagne, newly recovered from the sinking of the Titanic. And I mean that in like a good way, not like a rancid, spoiled, trashy way, in case you needed clarification. Why have I created 15 separate Vs and taken each and every single one of them to 100% tricked out completion? Why do I get goosebumps every single time I see Yorinobu choke the life out of Saburo? Why does Jackie's death make my eyes water every single time, and perhaps most prevalently throughout the game? Why does Johnny Silverhand feel like the greatest video game companion of all time? The best answer I can come up with is that the game, through the mediums of sound, graphics, and acting, just causes real, tangible emotions to stir within me. This comes back to something I mentioned in my previous video regarding how the modern gaming industry often pumps out massive titles which either rely on nostalgia or simply a big name, for instance, Halo or Call of Duty. What separates Cyberpunk from other open world roamers like Grand Theft Auto, for instance? Feelings and choice. It's always about emotions and how genuinely the decisions that you make impact the way you experience the game. From the very beginning, you can decide to take the path of the street kid, or the nomad, or the corpo. Relatively quickly, I still felt like I made a decision that mattered and contributed to the real-time development of V as I saw them, and not as a one-and-done vanilla template. By the way, from this point onward, I'm just going to refer to V as she, because female V is better in every single way, and no, Panem is not more attractive than Judy. But that's my choice, it's my preference, and the game accommodates these two things perfectly by allowing me to date and friendzone exactly who I like. Personally, my favorite V is Corpo V. She proclaims to anyone who listens that she works for Arasaka Counterintelligence and struts her stuff. And like an awesome example at the beginning of the game, if you recall, when the AV is flying to Lizzie's bar and she demands that it land on the roof to fuck procedures. This right before you straight up break a guy's neck and then pick up the basketball he put in your face and bank home a 3-pointer before touching base with Senior Jackie fucking Wells. If Johnny Silverhand is my favorite companion in Cyberpunk, then Jackie Wells takes a close, bloody second place. The backstory isn't even flushed out too much in depth before we met Jackie for the first time as players. No blabby, unnecessary exposition is required for me to understand that Jackie and V are fucking thick as thieves, and that their relationship goes back a long way. They are chums. The first words we hear him say at Lizzie's are, "Hey, you don't come here often, do you, chica? Now sit down and tell me what's got your shorts in a knot." That sentence immediately puts V's stress at ease, and his beaming smile makes me feel good too. The next dialogue that Jackie says is basically the best summation of Cyberpunk that exists in the game. "Got sparks flowing between the Valentino boys and Maelstrom. Eddies are there for the taking, so long as you don't get flatlined." This one sentence somehow simplifies the entire premise of the game without ruining its inherent emotional complexity. Cyberpunk is ultimately about the character you play, V. V is what you make of her. Whether that be by the ultimate queen of assholes, or a pacifist monk who is vehemently against the taking of lives in order to finish a job. The choices V made, and by extension me, were an accurate recreation, at least most of the time, of how I would have wanted to have acted if I had existed in her reality. One recurring trait that V does possess, which doesn't really vary too much, regardless of any decisions you make, is that V is a dreamer. For those who choose to let Johnny remain in her body, you may recall that when you visit the columbarium to place the bullet casing charm in her niche, it says only one word beneath her name: Dreamer. V wants to be the best, and who wouldn't? To be the top of your field, at the top of your craft, and ultimately, at the top of the world. Arasaka top floor, number 1, my son. But Cyberpunk wouldn't be Cyberpunk with V alone. What makes the game is Keanu Reeves' performance as Johnny Silverhand, and how he and V are stuck together in a predicament which neither are happy about. The relationship between V and Johnny is like a living, breathing organism, which you can choose to feed in an effort to grow stronger, or to starve it out, resulting in a mutually undying hatred of one another. The game forces you to hear by default Johnny's rants about his escapades against the Megacorps, but the ability to choose exists in this context as being one of two options. Either you intently listen with interest to what he has to say and subsequently throw in your 2 cents in rebuttal or agreement, or you take Omega blockers and temporarily at least shut him up. I believe that it's advantageous to befriend Johnny as he exists in your head anyway, and he's a wonderful source of comedy, unleashing creative insults and reminiscing about his crazy days as a relentless rocker boy while simultaneously knowing when solemnity is required to fit the scene. Johnny Silverhand is an asshole, and he makes no secret of this, but he is an asshole that leaves a good taste in the mouth, rather than a dirty asshole which has not been washed and leaves shit in your gullet. Keanu's performance is what allows Johnny to insult V in a way which only makes V like him more than she did before he opened his mouth. There are a million examples in which the extent of Johnny's broad character depth is put on display, but 2 specific examples continue to resonate with me still today. The first is Johnny's obnoxious and insensitive remarks at the discovery of Evelyn's body in Judy's apartment after she had slit her wrists to escape the trauma of her abuse at the hands of scavengers. The other is Johnny's total and complete silence when Joshua Stevenson crucifies himself for the Literal Passion Project BD, while also reciting passages from the Bible. If you choose to nail Joshua to the cross yourself, Johnny doesn't even try to dissuade you from doing so. Instead, he adopts the previously mentioned serious and sombre manner, while also saying V's first line for her. Are you not the Messiah? Save yourself, and save us. I don't believe Johnny's unpredictability is a result of some predetermined bipolarity, but of his natural chaotic character, which is put on display during the section where we get to play as Johnny through some of the biggest character-defining moments of his life. These 2 events being the bombing of Arasaka Tower and his failure to rescue his girlfriend Old Cunningham from the very same megacorporation's grip. Okay, so that's V and Johnny, a shriveled old married couple with absolutely no romantic affection for one another, but still have the ability to make each other think more deeply about anything and everything than they ever would when separate. There are hundreds of unique characters which contribute to my love for this game, but let me just name drop a few of the most crazy ones which never fail to entertain me. Ozo Bozo, the clown with a bright red hand grenade for a nose. The guy with the broken Mr. Stud, which V affectionately names the Flaming Crotch Guy. And then there's Gary the Prophet, who tells us about the techno-necromancers from Alpha Centauri. And perhaps a less crazy and more thought-provoking NPC, I guess, is the mysterious disappearing monk. You know the one I mean. These are just a few of the faces, both organic and chrome, which make Night City feel more like a real dystopian possibility rather than a more alien environment, which has really zero relatability. Whenever I'm looking at cyberware in the game, I like to imagine how close and realistic the artist's interpretation is to something that might vaguely be similar to it in our own timeline.
Some of the cyberware feel as though, although it's obviously largely based in science fiction, the scales of that very phrase, that equation, are way more balanced in Cyberpunk than any other games where crazy technology is on display. I absolutely can see people replacing limbs to become stronger, replacing their eyes to see more than their organic eyes ever could, and installing a second heart just in case the first one flatlines. I think one of the biggest areas of relatability which reside inside of Cyberpunk is the playing up of the enormous wealth gap which exists between the population of Night City, and also the environmental pollution which is also on display throughout the game. And lastly, I want to mention the crescendo of emotion. The conclusions which arrive as a direct result of your actions and choices throughout the game. There are 3 base varying endings which the player can experience, if they have met the obvious in-game requirements. Johnny insists that he and Rogue can storm Arasaka Tower, and you agree to give him control of your body for the mission by taking pseudoendotrizine. Alternatively, you can assault Arasaka Tower from underground by boring a hole using a giant drill with the help of Pan Am, Saul, and the rest of the Alcoldos. The third original ending you can get, which is considered to be the bad ending, if you choose to assist Hanako Arasaka in bringing down Yorinobu and reinstalling Saburo as Emperor, whilst also destroying Johnny Silverhand in a very detached and clinical manner, very unlike how Alt Cunningham detaches your psyches in the other 2 endings. But you probably know about the secret ending, appropriately titled Don't Fear the Reaper. This is my favorite ending, because it's the culmination of V and Johnny's friendship. Whether you choose to give him your body or not afterwards, I think matters less than the physical action of storming the tower by yourself with Johnny right there beside you, gun in hand. The secret ending was the most fulfilling for me in terms of positive feelings, but it didn't give me nearly as hard of a hit into the gut as when I first decided to choose the Arasaka ending. Without simply repeating the story, I'll conclude with some of V's dialogue from when she wakes up on the operating table after Johnny was surgically removed. Am I still V? I died twice. Everything is in order, the doctor responds, to which V can then choose to say, no, I feel empty, or no, who am I? V and Johnny are by the end of the game literally the same person. Although they may not both be in the driver's seat simultaneously, the body belongs to both. I can't think of a moment from a game where I felt more hollow than when I woke up on that table without my friend Johnny. Cyberpunk is a simulation of non-fictional issues based in a fictional city, and I think that is thought enough for this fictional game to provoke you to experience emotions which are very much non-fictional.